The bell rings at 5 a.m., and you are already awake because the wooden plank you sleep on stopped qualifying as a sleeping surface 11 days ago and has become instead a surface on which you lie horizontal and wait for the bell. The dormitory holds 14 students, 7 Chinese, 4 Korean, 2 Japanese, and you. The morning run is 8 kilometers through the hills surrounding Song Mountain in Henan province before breakfast, which is rice porridge and pickled vegetables eaten in 4 minutes of silence, because the training begins at 6, and lateness here is not corrected with words. You have vomited from exhaustion on 4 of the 11 days. On the other 7, you wanted to. The Shaolin monastery in Dengfeng is not what you imagined. You imagined something across 3 years of training in Amsterdam and 6 months of preparation and 12 hours of flight. Some version of the place that exists in the stories, spare and luminous and conducive to transformation. What you found is a stone compound on a mountainside that smells of liniment and incense and old sweat, run with the institutional efficiency of a place that has been doing exactly this for 15 centuries and has no interest in adapting to the expectations of new arrivals. The head instructor is a monk named Shifu Mingjun. He assessed you on your first day in approximately 30 seconds and has not spoken to you since. On day 11, during the post-run form practice in the stone courtyard, you run a sequence you have been developing for 3 years. You run it correctly, the transitions clean, the weight distribution precise, the breath following the movement rather than preceding it. Mingjun watches from the stone walkway above the courtyard. He watches for approximately 20 seconds. Then he turns and walks away without changing his expression. Your Chinese bunkmate Liang, who has been here 2 years and speaks careful English, watches you watch Mingjun leave. He says that is the first time he has looked at you. You understand from the way Liang says it that this is significant. You do not yet understand in what direction. You left Amsterdam with 68,000 euros a year, a 2-bedroom apartment, a woman named Sarah, and a career in civil engineering that you were competent at in the way a person can be competent at something that has nothing to do with who they are. You trained in a local kung fu school for 3 years. Your instructor said exceptional and meant it. He also said if you want to go further, you have to go there, and gestured somewhere east, and you heard invitation when he meant warning. On day 14, the satellite Wi-Fi opens for 30 minutes on Sunday afternoon, and Sarah's face is on the screen, and she asks how long, and you say you don't know, and she asks what that means, and you say it means you don't know. And the call ends with 9 minutes remaining. You go back to the courtyard in the dark and practice until you cannot lift your arms, which tells you everything about the choice you've already made without having made it. The training methodology at Shaolin is not mystical, it is systematic. The first phase is called Jibingong, foundational skills, and it is the systematic destruction of everything your body learned before it arrived here, followed by reconstruction from a different foundation. Horse stance until the thighs burn past burning into a different register entirely. Wall kicks until the hip flexors tear and re-knit stronger, and the angle of your extension changes. By degrees you can measure in years. Iron ring conditioning on the forearms, the rust orange rings hung from hooks in the courtyard wall, swung against the skin until the density of the bone underneath increases, and the skin becomes something between leather and armor. 8 hours a day, 6 days a week. But Sunday meditation for 3 hours, which in the first months is less like peace and more like being locked in a room with yourself with no furniture and no exit. At the end of the month 2, Liang tells you that 40% of foreign students leave in the first 3 months. Not because the body breaks, the body adapts faster than you'd believe possible until it happens to you. They leave at the point where improvement plateaus and the plateau becomes a mirror, and the mirror shows them specifically what they brought with them that doesn't belong inside these walls. You hear this and file it. You do not yet know which part of yourself it applies to. Month 4. Mingchen stops at your station during the morning form practice and watches you run the 5-animal sequence. Tiger, leopard, snake, crane, mantis, the movement cycling through the specific qualities of each creature without pausing between them. He watches for 90 seconds, then he places 2 fingers on the inside of your right wrist and adjusts the angle by what feels like nothing. 3 degrees, perhaps less. The correction moves up your arm, through your shoulder, down your spine, and reorganizes something in your lower back that you have been compensating for since a fall at 17 that no physiotherapist ever correctly identified. You run the sequence again. It is different, demonstrably, measurably, viscerally different. Mingjin watches. He says one word in Mandarin and walks away. Liang, 10 meters behind you, goes very still. That evening, he tells you the word Keijiao, teachable. Not a compliment. A statement that the training can proceed without having to undo something permanent first. He tells you Mingjin said this to him at month 7. He tells you to say nothing about it to the others. Month 6. A letter arrives on paper forwarded through 3 addresses. Sarah has met someone. She is not angry. The letter is written with the precision of a person who has rehearsed kindness into an instrument of surgical accuracy. You read it twice, fold it along its original creases, place it in the wooden box under your plank beside the 4 things you brought from home. You attend the evening meditation. You sit for 3 hours. And there, in the hall, with the candles and the mountain silence, you find something unexpected under the grief. A stillness that wasn't there 6 months ago, like a floor becoming visible when the furniture above it is removed. You don't know yet whether this is progress or loss. You will not know for some time. In the 2nd year, Mingjin assigns you a solo form. Xiaohong Quen, small red fist, a 108 movement sequence that appears in monastery records going back to the Tang dynasty. Assignment of a solo form means you have moved past Jib and Gong. It also means you now have something specific to fail at for the next 6 months. You practice Xiaohong Quen every available hour, in the solo courtyard before dawn, during the rest period, in the dark after lights out, running it in your head, until the movements are indistinguishable from thought. At month 18, Mingjin watches you run it completely, from the opening stance through all 108 movements to the closing bow. He watches without expression. At the end, he says 3 words, Nizai Biaoxian. You are performing. The sequence is technically correct and spiritually empty, which in Shaolin is considered worse than technically incorrect. Liang explains what this means in the only way that it can be explained. You are running the form while watching yourself run it. The conscious mind still supervising the body's performance, approving each transition, narrating the sequence to itself while executing it. The goal is Wu Wei, the state where the body moves without the mind conducting, where the form executes through you rather than being executed by you. You try everything. You run it in the dark. You run it exhausted past the point of thought. You run it in rain and cold and wind. The assessment does not change. You are performing. Month 22. Liang receives his certification. He packs his bag, small, everything 2 years condensed to one carried object, bows to Mingjin, bows to the students, walks to the road where a car waits. At the courtyard gate, he turns back. He says, "The form is not the thing. It is the thing that burns away everything that is not the thing." Then the car takes him, and he is gone. And you stand in the courtyard, understanding that he has just given you the most precisely useful information available, and that you could not have received it on day 1 or month 6 or month 18. You are being shaped to hold it. You are not yet the right shape. You are closer. Month 27. You are in the solo courtyard at pre-dawn. You have been running Xiaohong Quen for over a year, and the assessment has not changed, and you have stopped expecting it to change, and you have reached the place where even the desire to change it has become exhausted. In the 44th movement, horse stance, both fists chambered, you stop. Not a decision, a cessation. You stand in the position for 11 minutes without completing the sequence, without moving, without meditating, simply emptied of even the desire to continue. And Mingjin appears on the walkway above. You become aware of him without looking up. He watches you stand in the 44th position for the full 11 minutes. Then, begin again. Not a command. A statement of fact, delivered the way weather is described. You lower your fists. You bring your feet together. You begin from movement 1. And somewhere between movement 1 and movement 44, something you have been carrying for 27 months sets itself down without asking permission. And the form continues without your supervision, and you do not notice this happening because you are no longer the kind of thing that notices. You are simply the movement moving. 3 weeks later, Mingjin calls you to his study. 14 square meters, writing desk, 2 cushions, Eastern scroll, sandalwood, and old paper. He asks you to run Xiaohong Quen. You run it, he watches, you finish. The room holds its silence for a long moment, then he says, Da Cheng. Full completion. Not perfection. The technique will continue until you die. Da Cheng means the form is alive, means the body and mind are no longer negotiating with each other, means the sequence is no longer something you do. He hands you a scroll. Your formal recognition as a Shaolin disciple, part of the lineage, your name added to a record that runs backward across 15 centuries of people who stood in this same monastery and paid the same price to hear these same two words. You walk out into the stone courtyard. Late autumn, first snow on the mountain peak, the stones cold through your thin slippers. You have been here 3 years and 41 days. Your apartment in Amsterdam has been sublet twice. Sarah married the man from the letter last spring. Your engineering career exists on a document that describes someone you remember meeting briefly. You stand in the courtyard holding the scroll and you conduct an inventory. You came with an identity, a career, a relationship, a future, a self that was articulate and accomplished and built entirely from the outside in. You still have your name. You have the scroll. You have a body that can do what this body can do. And in the place where the constructed self used to live, you have a stillness that is not emptiness. It is the ground that was always there, that the construction was built on top of and had been obscuring for 30 years. A new student arrived 2 weeks ago. German, mid-20s, 4 years in a European Quoon, carries himself with the specific confidence of someone who is the best version of this that exists outside these walls. He is in the courtyard practicing his forms. He is very good. You watch him from across the stones, and he sees you watching and straightens slightly. The unconscious performance of someone being observed. You recognize it exactly. Because it is what you looked like on day 11. You do not speak to him. You walk to the far wall and begin your morning form. He watches you move and doesn't know yet that watching is the first lesson, that the second lesson won't arrive for months. And that what you are showing him is not technique, but the distance between where he is standing and where you are standing, which cannot be covered by any path except the one that goes directly through everything he came here carrying. Most people spend their lives adding things to themselves: credentials, relationships, titles, stories. The rarest pursuit is the one that asks you to subtract and keeps asking until you find out what's left when everything optional has been removed. If you want to see more, click the video on screen now.